Hello, my friends. Jill Osborne from the Interstitial Cystitis Network. It is Sunday, December 21st of 2025, and it is time for our last support group meeting before Christmas. Now, y'all haven't seen me in almost a month because we had a fairly catastrophic Thanksgiving. We had a great Thanksgiving Day, wonderful family get together. What we didn't know is somebody came to Thanksgiving with the flu. And it wasn't just a little flu, it was that darn H3N2 subclade K devastating flu. And I got it. And that's why you haven't seen me. I had 2 trips to the ER. I had a trip to urgent care. I have pneumonia now in my left lung, although it appears to be healing. And I went into AFib. Oh, joy. So now I'm on blood thinners again. So when people ask me, how's your holidays going? My answer is, what holidays? I've been sick the whole time. And I'm not the only one. Lots and lots and lots of people are getting this absolutely horrific flu that's going around. So should I be doing this meeting today? I'm going to cough for sure. Ironically, I'm going to cough. It's really, really important that we not beat ourselves up when we have a holiday that isn't what we would want. Listen, the holidays are stressful anyway. The holidays are, romantically bring everybody together. We open presents, we have meals, all that sort of stuff. There's good feelings. There's no crying children. There's no fights in our heads. The holidays we want are the holidays we see often on TV. But that isn't real. That isn't real. And I have always said from day one that the best holidays are the holidays where weird, random things happen. So my friend Julie, who is a registered dietitian who works with IC, she had this hysterical story she shared where her entire family got the flu. And they were all in pajamas all day. They made soup. There was no fancy meal. And today, that is one of her fondest memories of the holidays, was not the big glorious holiday. It was the little one where everybody was sick and people were camped out on the couch and had their Kleenex and had their hot chocolate. And everybody just tried to love on each other and to support each other. I opted out of my Christmas this morning. I let my sister know I wasn't going to come. And I will tell you, I cried a little bit. But number one, I'm still sick a little, and I do not feel very strong. I don't feel strong enough to drive a long distance. I mean, I've only driven in town, and I come home exhausted because of the pneumonia. Number two, we're having very heavy, heavy rain that day, and I do not feel strong enough to drive in the rain that day. And as she said to me this morning, oh, by the way, we've got a new virus going through town. I mean, going through the families. And it's like, my rule when I talked to her a week ago was, if anybody's sick, I can't come. I mean, I just got my AFib under control. The last thing I need is to get sick again and mess my heart up again. So, I cried my tears too. But in the end, as Anne just wrote, it's okay to stay home. It's okay to be safe and warm. It's okay to put yourself first. It's okay to go slow. It's okay to keep it short. It's okay to rest. My mother was the queen of guilt. And I know Mom from up in heaven, she's looking at me going, no, I'm not. And I'm like, yes, you were. My mother was a master at guilt. And she was a master at getting us to do things for the holidays that some of us really didn't want to do. And she was very, very obsessed with, we all have to be together. We all have to be together. You have to come. You have to come. Even if you're sick, you have to come. And when my IC started, and back then I had terrible pelvic pain, terrible pelvic pain. And yet I went and basically had to lay on my sister's bed, and everybody was going, "What's wrong with Jill?" And I felt like I ruined Christmas. I mean, I really felt like I kind of ruined Christmas a couple of years when I went and I was feeling so poorly. And so finally I put my foot down and I said, "Listen, I don't feel well enough to do this today. I'm going to stay home." And my mother, God bless her soul, she worked me. She worked me. For an hour or two. You've got to come. You've got to come. Everybody's going to miss you. You need to be there. It won't be the same without you there. And I was just like, Mom, I'm staying home with my heating pad. Here's my presents. You can bring me back some food, but right now I get just to put myself first right now. I'm in too much pain to do this for you on this Christmas. And it was the best thing I could have ever done. I mean, I will be honest, when they got in the car and drove away, I cried for about 5 minutes because nobody wants to be alone on Christmas. I don't want to be alone on Christmas, but let me tell you, I was exactly where I needed to be. I had a heating pad. I watched an old movie. I didn't get stressed out. It was good. And they came home and all was well. And that's going to happen this year. I put myself first. I'm staying home. Again, nobody likes to be alone, but it's okay to put yourself first. So I came online today because I got a phone call from somebody who because I have been working, I'm able to talk a couple of hours now. I mean, I completely lost my voice. I mean, it was just brutal, horrific flu. And I'm telling you right now, if anybody in your family has a sore throat like razor blades, tell them to stay home and not come to your house, because that's how it starts. That's how it starts. And then you end up with this horrific chest congestion, green globs of mucus. I was on 3 antibiotics because I got pneumonia. And again, I still feel it. And now I have a yeast infection. Oh, joy. It's another present for Christmas, right? That's right. Okay. Anyway, so I had a patient call a couple of days ago. She called from Europe, actually, and she was having just a horrific flare 4 days before Christmas, and she was really upset. I mean, number one, her pain was off the charts. It was really bad. She had had a bladder infection. And honey, if you're watching, I'm speaking to you, and I didn't see your email. You were going to email me? I didn't see an email from you come through, because remember, I was going to send you some stuff. So make sure you email me. Get anybody out there, my email's icnetwork@mac.com. So she had a really severe bladder infection. The infection was killed. The pain from the infection stayed. And then the doctor decided to do a bladder installation. It was a steroid lidocaine installation. And she had a really, really bad reaction to that. The number one bladder installation used in IC patients is a heparin lidocaine installation. You know what? Here, hold on a sec. I don't know what's going on with you guys. We're streaming right now on YouTube and Facebook. I do not know what's happening with YouTube right now. So we'll just leave it there. And if somebody can head on over to YouTube, the YouTube stream, and see if it's working, that would be great. Because people that I came in left, and that usually means there's a sound problem. So please, if somebody can go over there. Oh, wait, somebody just came. All right, so whoever just came into YouTube, could you do me a favor and tell me, is the sound okay? Because if the sound's not okay, I'll go ahead and stop it or restart it. Okay. So anyway, the most popular bladder installation in the world is by far a rescue installation. The reason why is it's called a rescue because it will rescue you out of a flare. Normally, a rescue installation is a bladder coating like heparin combined with lidocaine to numb the bladder wall and a little bit of a steroid, maybe a little bit of an antibiotic. But here's something a lot of people don't know is that some people react to lidocaine. And lidocaine, instead of numbing their bladder, hurts their bladder badly. It's rare. I mean, I don't even have a statistic for you, but maybe 5% of the patients who have a bladder installation, a rescue installation, might struggle with a severe flare afterwards. And that's just a weird sensitivity reaction to the lidocaine. So anyway, this happened to her, and now her pain is absolutely off the charts. But my message to her and my message to you is when you sustain a chemical injury like that, the good news is that that is basically just an injury. And injuries heal. Injuries heal. Your bladder 24 hours a day, your body 24 hours a day is trying to repair any damage that's happened to it, any damage. And so she had the equivalent of a chemical burn in her bladder. But the other question was, because she was on really heavy antibiotics, is there any chance that she picked up a fungal infection of the bladder? And the answer is yes, because I have a fungal infection from I had amoxicillin, I had augmentin, and then I had a Z-Pak. So yeah, I have a yeast infection myself. It's annoying as hell. So what's hard is that care in Europe right now is very, very difficult. And she shared that some doctors have told her that they don't believe IC is real. And some doctors have told her that it's all in her head. And finally, she found a doctor who said, no, it's not all in your head. It's a real condition. So again, if you're watching, pop me that email because I got some stuff to send to you. Now let's go to comments here. So Anne says, stay home and be safe. And yeah, and that's the other hard part about the holidays, especially if this is your first holiday after you've lost family members. You got to be really gentle and you don't, it's okay if you just can't do it. It's okay if you feel overwhelmed. It really is. You don't have to go into a big crowd of family if you're grieving. If you need to stay and be in your bedroom and cry a little bit, that's okay too. That's okay too. Be gentle. Be kind to yourself. Cindy says, your mom and my mom were cut from the same cloth. You betcha, Cindy. I mean, listen, she should have been teaching a class. Okay, for those of you on YouTube, I only have a couple of people on YouTube right now. Could you put in the chat if the sound is okay? Because I don't quite understand what's happening with YouTube right now. Loretta says, better to stay home and be safe than putting yourself at risk. Many of us have to make this decision. Tears, yes, but better to feel well. I completely agree. Especially this year. Debbie says, hey, Jill, boy, oh boy, do I need you today. All right, Debbie, how do you need me? You tell me, hon, what's going on? Hello, Christy, and Merry Christmas to you too. Guys, I haven't gotten any Christmas cards out at all. I might be able to work on some tomorrow. So I'm just way behind. I've basically been in bed for 2.5 weeks. Anne says, can you take pyridium if you take hydroxyzine as meth? I don't know why you couldn't. I just understand that pyridium, which acts to numb your bladder wall, is only going to work for bladder wall pain. It's not going to work for pelvic pain, pelvic floor pain or nerve pain. So I will tell you that pyridium never worked for me. But if you happen to be having a flare over the holidays, it's really good to have some on hand just in case. You go down to the store, get yourself some. azo bladder pain relief tablets just in case you start having a flare. That might numb your bladder out, chill your bladder out a little bit. Johanna said, having issues logging into the store. So yes, Joanna, we talked about that Friday. And here, hold on a sec. If you can call me after this meeting, or if you can pop me an email with your phone number, my email address is icnetwork@mac.com. I'll log in right now and fix it for you. Okay. We just can't do it publicly here, right? I mean, I'll do it on another computer, but I also don't want people to hear what I might be saying to you about that. So let's just go ahead and just wait until after the meeting. And if you can email me, icnetwork@mac.com, or call me at 707-538-9442. That's 707. Oh, I don't even have my phone in here. Here, let me write it in. There you go. If you can email me your phone number, then I will call you back. The phones are charging over in the other room. Anne says, is mast cell activation a bladder wall flare? Mast cell activation occurs when the bladder wall has been irritated. So one of the ways that we describe IC for some patients is it's like having 100 mosquito bites at once in your bladder. So think about it. If a mosquito comes along and bites you, what does it do? It injects its venom underneath your skin, and that venom actually kind of blocks nerves, which is why you often don't feel it. But what happens when that venom goes under your skin is it's irritating, and mast cells in your skin that are supposed to be there react to that irritation and release histamine. And histamines are bad. Histamines cause redness, they cause swelling, they cause pain, they cause itching. Histamines during allergy season are what are provoking, having a runny nose. Again, for you guys on YouTube, could you do me a favor and write in the chat if the sound is okay or not? Because YouTube is being weird again. So I don't know if you're okay, if you can hear me well or not. I apologize, but that is what it is. So getting back to your question, is mast cell activation a bladder wall flare? No. Mast cell activation occurs when the bladder wall has been irritated. Okay, I just got an email from somebody. Hold on a sec. Okay, Johanna, I got your email, and so I will call you, okay? Debbie said, had Botox 2 weeks ago, urinary retention, can't even feel my bladder is full. Can Botox urinary retention make a bladder prolapse worse? My pain in the urethra and back is unbearable, but also have groin pain. I feel like I'm losing my mind. Girl, did this all happen after your Botox treatment? So Botox is challenging. Here, hold on a sec. Here, hold on. Echoing. So let's think about Botox for a moment. Botulinum toxin has been a treatment for a number of medical conditions for many, many years. Basically, what it does is it's a deactivated tuberculosis, if I remember correctly, bacterium that when you put it next to a nerve, it basically blocks the nerve. So Botox has been used, it's used, cosmetically in your forehead. It can be used for migraines and TMJ, and it has been used for many, many years in the bladder wall. The problem with using it in the bladder wall is that when the doctor does the Botox injections around the bladder, they can't miraculously see where all the nerves are. They're just kind of blindly, well, not quite blindly, but they're injecting it through different parts of the bladder. Unfortunately, they can accidentally silence the nerve that controls your ability to pee. And so some people have Botox and they come out of that surgery unable to urinate. Like literally, they can't feel a damn thing. Debbie says here she can't even feel if her bladder is full and she's having urinary retention. That is indeed a very, very well-known complication of Botox therapy. And as Sue says here, that usually goes away after a couple of weeks. Hopefully it will, but for some patients, it can be a bit longer. Botox as a therapy has its use has narrowed dramatically. So remember 10 years ago, 5, 10, 15 years ago, we all assumed that IC was an incurable bladder disease. And so all of our therapies were targeting this diseased bladder wall or this injured bladder wall. So that's when people were doing Elmeron, and that's when people were taking the low-dose antidepressants, and that's when people were doing InterStim and Botox. I mean, those were the standard therapies for this mysterious, incurable disease called interstitial cystitis. Okay, but that's changed now. We don't think of IC as a disease anymore. We don't even think of IC as a bladder disease anymore. We think of IC as a pelvic pain syndrome for which there are many, many potential causes. And if you were to come to a support group, you would see how diverse we are, because for some people like me, IC begins in childhood. For others, IC begins after menopause. Same diagnosis, but are we really the same? The answer, of course, is no. For some people, IC begins after they have a baby, a difficult childbirth, or after they fall on their tailbone, while for others, it begins as a woman I was working with not a month ago. She had just started drinking a ton of Mountain Dew, and she was menopausal. It's like, oh my God, why are you doing that? And she had the equivalent of a chemical injury of her bladder. So we are a stunningly diverse patient population. Years ago, we were all offended when people called IC a grab bag diagnosis. We were all very offended. We felt that we were being minimized. But you know what? It's absolutely true. IC is a grab bag diagnosis. It means you've got frequency, urgency, pressure, or pain, and the doctor doesn't know why. Thus, you must fall into this weird diagnosis called interstitial cystitis. But today we phenotype. Today we now recognize the different patient groups, and we have a very strong focus on trying to identify underlying causation. We want to know what's driving your symptoms in the first place so that we can treat that. Because when we treat the underlying cause, maybe the symptoms will stop in the first place, right? That's always going to be our goal. So if you were to go to any good IC doctor today, they would phenotype you. So the reason why I bring this up is getting back to Botox. So now we have these groups. So the question is, which group is Botox an effective treatment for? Is Botox a treatment for Hunner's lesions? No, it's not. And there was a fascinating, somewhat horrifying discussion at a big national conference with a young researcher who proposed Botox being the perfect treatment for Hunner's lesions. And yet patients didn't get better. And boy, did he get a lecture from one of the top doctors in the world. They were like, and his answer was, wait, you don't treat Hunner's lesions any other way? You just do Botox? And this young doctor, I think he was from Poland, said yes. And the IC doctor said, well, isn't that sad that you're basically forcing patients to suffer? because there are other treatments for Hunner's lesions that work quite well at reducing pain. And of course, we now have lactoferrin, which is an over-the-counter supplement, which has been shown to heal Hunner's lesions in some, but not all patients. Is Botox going to be helpful for estrogen atrophy? No. Is Botox going to be helpful for chemical injury of the bladder? No. Is Botox going to be helpful for tight pelvic floor muscles? Maybe if you turn the nerves off a little bit. Maybe that will maybe kind of sort of help the muscles relieve. It's really debatable. Is Botox helpful for pudendal neuralgia? I don't. Widespread pain? No, I don't think so. The window for Botox really is somebody who has very dysfunctional nerves in their bladder wall. That's going to be the frequency urgency syndrome patient or the overactive bladder syndrome patient. Botox is not going to repair anything. It's just going to temporarily silence the symptoms. And again, it comes with risks of side effects like urinary retention. And I really what I want you to do is I want you to be very, very focused on underlying causation. It's like, doctor, why are these symptoms happening in the first place? Are these symptoms happening because I'm in estrogen atrophy? Are these happening because I have tight pelvic floor muscles? What we don't want to do is just chase the symptoms for years, because in the end, you'll never get better. Our focus today is on trying to identify the underlying cause. If we can find and treat the underlying cause, like tight pelvic floor muscles, things can get better. Anne says, if you take Myrbetriq, do you need to get checked for urinary retention? Well, you don't need to get checked for urinary retention. You're going to know if you have urinary retention because you're not going to be able to pee easily. So if you're on Myrbetriq and you're struggling to start your urine stream, things are really slowing down, then yeah, you want to reach out to your doctor and maybe they will adjust your dose downward a little bit. Myrbetriq is by far the most common and important oral medication that can calm the symptoms of frequency urgency. In the old days, that used to be ditropan and detrol, oxybutynin, but we now know that oxybutynin is associated with cognitive decline, and especially if you're older, but a cognitive decline can happen in your 20s too. So again, back 20 years ago, 10 years ago, a lot of IC patients were put on oxybutynin. We don't do that anymore, especially in an older patient, because we don't want to affect cognition at all. And I'm going to say it right here. Here, hold on a sec. I'm going to say it right here. This is why we're not using Elmeron either. Elmeron's use has diminished substantially because we now know a very strong association with retinal disease, blindness, and inflammatory bowel disease and colectomies. And you know, what's so interesting is I had a patient like 10 days ago who called, who had they had just scheduled her appointment to have her bowel removed because it is filled with polyps, just filled with polyps, which is what we have seen now in patients using Elmeron. And the thing is when you remove the polyp, they just grow back, and sometimes more grow back. So you end up with polyps on top of polyps on top of polyps. So we have a number of IC patients documented by Emory University who developed eye disease, and they developed very severe bowel disease that required their bowels to be removed. So anyway, she called and she was very upset because her IC was flaring and she was getting ready for the surgery. And oh, she was just very, very upset. And I I said, why are you having your bowel removed? And she said, because it's filled with polyps and the doctors don't know what to do. They're worried that I'm going to get bowel cancer. And she was stunned when I told her that that's associated with Elmeron. She was stunned. And I asked her how long she'd been on Elmeron, and her answer was like 17 years. So for anybody out there who's been on Elmeron and you go have your colonoscopy, if your colonoscopy is showing a lot of polyps, know that that's now associated with Elmeron use. All right, let me go back here. Sue says, I don't know who your doctor is. I see Dr. Peters, but if they give you too much Botox and you can't empty your bladder, some people have to catheterize for a little. It's one way or the other. I've never had any problems with Dr. Peters. Yeah, he's wonderful. Sue says, I find it very helpful for me because I have very tight pelvic floor muscles for a multitude of reasons. Technically, my bladder is healthy when my muscles aren't squeezing it. Excellent. And you also have scar tissue. Yeah. Renee said, this must be why my doctor at Cleveland wouldn't do Botox years ago. Now I understand why. Exactly. Debbie says, I think it's a PVR test. Mine was 473. The only thing I felt was heaviness in my vagina, and I have to push so hard on my bottom of my abdomen to pee a tiny darn bit, then soaked in a hot bath. That sounds gross, but it worked for a bit. Yeah, hon, I mean, it's really hard when your muscles when everything is absolutely silenced. I mean, and in the end, back in 2014 when we had, our IC guidelines were first published in 2011, then they were updated in 2014, then they were updated again in 2022. So in 2014, the way they wanted doctors to approach the treatment of IC is based upon the risk of adverse event. So they rated treatments on a scale of 1 to 6. 1 was no risk, very, very little risk. 2 came with some risk. 3 came with more risk. 6 was permanent risk, like surgery. Well, Botox was in 5 because the risk of urinary retention was so high. But then they did another study that showed that if they reduced the dose of the Botox, the urinary retention got better. And so they declassified it into a 4. But a 4 still carries significant risks. I'm just going to say it to you. You got to research this stuff. Don't just go into the doctor's office and say, hey, I don't care what you to do anything, make this go away. That is a journey to never getting better. That, you've got to walk in prepared to ask very pointed questions. So specifically, number 1, what is driving my symptoms? Is it my bladder wall? Is it my pelvic floor? Is it a Hunner's lesion? Is it my central nervous system, also known as the phenotypes? Number 2, if the doctor proposes a therapy, you've got to ask, how is this going to help me specifically? And again, in your brain, I want you to be thinking about, are we managing symptoms or are we repairing something? Because in the end, we want to fix things. We don't want to just chase the symptoms over time, because that means you're going to be using medications for the rest of your life. And we don't want that. What we want to do instead is try to identify the underlying cause and fix that so that you don't have symptoms in the first place. That's why we phenotype. That is the future of IC care. Everybody in the world agrees with that now. Okay. Anne said, here, hold on a sec. My friend keeps getting Klebsiella. Any thought she's in and out of the hospital? Well, honey, it means her bio. Okay, so I would be considering a couple of different things. The fact that she's had Klebsiella, that's a more aggressive infection. The odds are she's been on a lot of antibiotics, and that means that her biome has been damaged. And so it's very, very important whenever you're taking antibiotics that you also eat a lot of yogurt if you can. Do your fermented foods if you can. I can do yogurt. I had it this morning, but I cannot do fermented foods. I just don't like them at all. And or do your acidophilus, your probiotics, your prebiotics, things like that. We just have to robustly try to rebuild that bladder. And that's where that Femetry 1 supplement is really very unique in the IC world. Femetry 1 helps to restore your biome after antibiotic use. So that's something you could consider too. The other thing we have to consider, Anne, is the health of her immune system, because there are some people who just keep getting infections over and over and over again. And in some cases, that means that their immune system cannot fight off the infection for one reason or the other. And so we've got to figure that out. Man, if you had 2 infections in 6 months, 3 infections in a year or more, like a question, one of your very first questions really needs to be, can we check my immune system to see if I'm healthy? To see how good my immune system is at fighting infection. And the answer too, of course, is another thing that could be playing a role in some women, not men, but in some women getting recurring infections is estrogen atrophy, that as we get older, the biome changes, the things become a little bit, what is it, more acidic or less acidic? Anyway, what happens is the biome in the vagina changes. It becomes more hospitable to more bacteria. And so women over the age of 60 tend to have a lot more diverse bacteria than somebody under the age of 45. And that was proven in an IC study done by Dr. Ann Ackerman at UCLA a couple of years ago. And of course, we have to throw out that there's always a chance that she has a very drug-resistant form of Klebsiella, that the antibiotics simply can't kill it because it's resistant. And hopefully they've done some next-generation DNA urine testing to identify any drug-resistant genes. Once my tonsil starts to tickle, it's going to get interesting. Okay, Nancy says, do I have a specialist in the Georgia area? I don't. There is a female doctor. I think her name is Angie Stoer, Stoehr, in Atlanta, that I like quite a bit. And so she would be somebody that I would suggest that, you can Google her name. It's here. Hold on. Let me do that. I want to make sure I get it right. No, that's Angie Stoer is in Texas. So I have to remember the name of the Georgia one. So hold on a sec. What is the name of the, she should be in our database. Let me look here. Hold on. We have a database of doctors and physical therapists on our website. It's in the IC Information Center under Find a Doctor. Oh, come on. What is her name? It's like right here. It's like on the tip of my tongue. Let me see if I can find that for you. I'm making my computer very angry here. Hold on. You know what? It's not going to let me do it right now. If you reach out to me, we are going to be working. We are going to be filling orders on tomorrow and Tuesday. Wednesday is Christmas Eve. If you need your supplements or anything else by the end of the year, please order tonight, because we would be able to ship them on Monday or Tuesday. Wednesday is going to be a little tricky. Please know here too that we're having very, very severe weather, so that could play a role too. The week after Christmas, we will also be shipping. I will be answering the phones if I can. But obviously we're just kind of going a little bit slow over the holidays. Not with the shipping. If you order, we're going to get it out. I promise you that. But we can't ship on Christmas Day, so it's tricky. Christmas on a Thursday. Just very, very tricky. Debbie said, how do you get the phenotypes? They're on our website, hun. I also have a video. If you go to our IC Masterclass video series on YouTube, it's episode 4, and it goes through the phenotypes for IC extensively. Now, you would never know I washed my hair today. I really did wash it, but it is just being weird. Yeah, definitely look them up. I've got a big discussion. I mean, that's something I'm really proud of. Oh, wait, I got something really exciting to show you. Oh my God, how did I miss this? So y'all remember that over the summer and early fall, we were working on our flare guide, right? So we have our new flare guide, which talks about bladder wall flares, pelvic floor flares, neuralgia flares, stress flares, menstrual flares, urethral flares, rectal flares, etc. So a lot of people are now getting some benefit from this. This is available in the IC Network store. It's still not available as a Kindle, but you can get it in the IC Network shop in print or as a PDF file. PDF file is $9.99. Print right now is $16.95. It's going to go up to $18.95 because they just increased the cost of paper again. But now the next one's done, baby. Look at this, our new diet guide. So this is the first diet guide we've done, that I've done, and my fellow writers have done in several years. And so in this diet guide, because this is part of a series of books, right? So they're the IC 101 Flare Guide, the IC 101 Diet Guide, then we're going to have the IC 101 Medical Journal, which is on the floor right there, halfway done. And then we're going to have the IC 101 Pain Guide. And then we're going to have the ketamine cystitis book, and we're going to have the chemo cystitis book. And I've got really exciting news about that too. But let's get back to this, the IC 101 Diet Guide. So this is 90 pages of the latest information about the IC diet. One of the reasons why IC 101 is so incredibly important is that it's the only books out there that explain things within the context of your phenotype. So for flares, your phenotype will determine the types of flares you have. Your phenotype also determines your diet sensitivity. Because hello, we've all been to support group meetings where some people can drink coffee and they're fine, and other people drink coffee and they're down for a week in agonizing pain. Why? You both have the diagnosis of interstitial cystitis. Why is there such extreme diet variation out there? That, my friend, is based upon your phenotype. So in this book, now just know that this is my review copy, and I am going through it with a fine-tooth comb, and I am making just the last round of changes. I should be done very quickly. This will be for sale in the IC Network store for sure after the first of the year, but I'd love to have it for sale next week if anybody can do anything. So the first section we have is understanding the IC diet and all that pink stuff. Those are things that I want to change. And so we go through the phenotype. So for example, patients with Hunner's lesions absolutely are going to be the most diet sensitive. There's no doubt about that. That is very, very well known. Hey, Kayleen, long time no see. I hope you're doing okay. Sounds like you're having more UTIs. Yikes. Patients who are bladder wall driven from estrogen atrophy, they are going to be diet sensitive. Patients with chemocystitis with an injury to the bladder wall, they're going to be diet sensitive. Patients who are pelvic floor driven are going to be much, much less diet sensitive because they normally have a healthy bladder wall. It's their muscles that are the problem. But patients with pelvic floor dysfunction, if your muscles are so tight, they cut off blood supply to the bladder and the bladder wall's starting to break down because of ischemia, you're going to have some food sensitivity, but that's going to go away once you do physical therapy to restore blood flow. Patients who have widespread pain, you know, the IC, the vulvodynia, the TMJ, the IBS, all that sort of stuff, characterized by very sensitive skin, wicked sense of smell. If you're in that group, you're going to be very, very sensitive to caffeine, like me, because caffeine and chocolate are neurostimulatory. Okay. In this, we have, hold on a sec. So we have the food lists, including the research list, which is always where you start. And then our newly updated 3-column ICN food list, pages and pages of bladder-friendly foods we're trying and foods to avoid. And this has now been broken down into categories. So I've got a section on beverages, a section on grains and breads, a section on spices, a section on what vitamins and supplements are bladder friendly. Like, for example, senna is not bladder friendly. A section on snacks. What's a good snack you can have when you have an irritated bladder? Well, you can have unsalted almonds. You can have caramel, mints, butterscotch. You can have carob, because carob does not contain caffeine like chocolate does. You could, you know, what's a great bladder-friendly dessert for the holidays? Cheesecake. You should be able to tolerate a modest amount of potato chips. Now, granted, they can be a little on the salty side, and salt can irritate a wound, so you want to back off on that. Anyway, so we go through lots of snacks, then we go through condiments and dressings and oils, food additives, dairy, meats. So, for example, the meat aisle is your friend. Listen, the great majority of meats out there are perfectly bladder friendly. The problem is what you put on top of it: rubs, spices, sauces. You know, you got to go mild, my friends. You got to go a little bit mild when you got an irritated bladder. And an extensive section on fruits and veggies. So this is the first book to include the big new updated diet. Okay, what else? Then we have a section on, so what can we eat? And guys, anytime, if you get the PDF file, this is actually a redheaded woman. This is me. But in print, it's all in black and white, because it's just too expensive to print color. I'm telling you right now. So I go over meats, veg, salads, dairy, et cetera, really give you an idea of, I mean, there's just a ton of foods you can eat. You don't need to be afraid of food when you've got interstitial cystitis. You just have to make smart decisions and usually walk away from junk food. There's a whole section on, so what can we drink? And for the first time, we go in depth into the milk substitutes like coconut milk, rice milk, almond milk, soy milk, oat milk, and other milks like flax, cashew, hemp, and pea. Go into juicing. Is juicing IC friendly? No, it's not. The problem with juicing is that you end up eating a lot more fruit than you would if you were just eating the actual piece of fruit. So with juicing, absolutely concentrates acid. You will end up getting a lot more acid when you're juicing. It's better to just eat the fruit. Let's see. Hold on one sec. We go over the coffees, herbal coffees, real coffees, how to approach that. And for a first time, we have a whole section now on what to do when diets conflict. Let's say you've got irritable bowel and you've got IC and you've got migraines, et cetera, each with their own subtle diet variation. So we talk about that in depth. Nobody's ever done that before in the IC world. Including TMJ. Here, hold on. Talk about autoimmune disease, candida, TMJ, migraines, gastroparesis and GERD, celiac disease, vulvodynia, FODMAP issues, celiac disease, IBS, etc. Our writer Stacy has a great article on how to overcome fear associated with food. and the IC diet. Gosh, she's just a brilliant, brilliant writer. And she's doing all of our social media campaigns right now. And man, she's just hitting it out of the park. We've got some success stories in here from other patients. What else do we have? How to work your way back to coffee. We have some great meal suggestions. That sound is funny. Hear that sound? Bladder-friendly spices. My friend Bev Lauman has contributed an article on which spices are bladder-friendly versus which ones aren't. How to eat out with IC. And then we have a section on foods by culture. So here's the thing. If you look at the research, the IC diet research studies, basically say to avoid all Mexican, Asian, and I think they said Italian foods too. And, you know, we all were like, whoa, 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 whoa. That's way, 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 way too broad. You know, because, for example, I grew up in California, and we have a very strong Mexican food industry and a Latin food industry. And Mexican food is remarkably mild. It's remarkably mild. You can enjoy Mexican food when you have IC, as long as you don't put the super hot spices on it. The odds of irritating your bladder are really, really low. So anyway, I want to read you my little intro to this because I had to qualify this. So let me just read something I wrote here. So I'm a Norwegian, raised on what is likely the blandest diet on the planet. So I'm not an expert at multicultural foods. One insight into cream sauce and fondue, I'm your girl. But I did grow up with homemade spaghetti sauce and lasagna, usually once a week. And as a Californian, Mexican food is a beloved staple in our homes. From burritos and tacos to turkey enchiladas made with holiday leftovers, we were raised on an Americanized and milder version of Italian and Mexican foods. So fair warning, I'm probably the last person you should get advice from on international food. I mean, and you know, I'm just not a foodie. Everybody in my family knows I'm not a foodie. I like simple, basic food. And then we have eating out with IC, and then a whole section on wine, beer, and spirits, the alcohols, which can be irritating, and the alcohols which are not. Like, for example, sake is actually pretty bladder friendly for many patients. In contrast, a dark beer is very well known for causing more irritation. And, you know, listen, with the holidays coming up, we all want to sit at the table and we want to toast. And of course, for those of us with a sensitive bladder, that alcohol could cause a night of pain and certainly days. One of the things that I've been doing is I have been buying de-alcoholized wine and de-alcoholized beer. And it's fantastic. Like, I love Guinness beer. I love warm Guinness beer, which is an Irish stout, very brown. The reason why I like it is there's just so many flavors to it. Like, you swirl that in your mouth, you can taste chocolate, you can taste coffee. There's all sorts of really fun flavors in warm Guinness beer. And Guinness makes a de-alcoholized version of their beer. And I'm telling you, you have no clue there's no alcohol in it. It tastes exactly that same. Now, granted, if you got a sensitive bladder, doing a stout beer it might be a little bit more risky than doing a Stella Artois or a Molson Golden, something like that. But try it. And they even make de-alkalized champagne, and it's good. So it removes the alcohol. Now, it's still going to be a little bit acidic, so take some pre-leaf, and then you'll be able to sit at the table with your family and make a toast to the new year. And then we have frequently asked questions about the diet, like, I react to some foods on the bladder list. Why? Or why can I eat a food one day and a few days later I flare from it? Coffee in the morning helps me have a bowel movement, but also hurts my bladder. What should I do? Let's see. What else? Should I drink alkaline water for my IC? Hell no. 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 Do not pay for alkaline water. The problem with, listen, the first time I had alkaline water, I had a shot of alkaline water at a food conference. My sister and I used to go to a lot of food conferences to find low acid food that we would sell in the IC Network shop. And we were in San Francisco at a food conference when there was a booth offering shots of alkaline water. And so I'm like, oh, I've heard about this. Let me try it. It stripped all of the mucus out of my mouth. Like I swallowed that alkaline water and I felt like I had nothing in my mouth other than dry, painful skin. And I had to swirl water in my mouth for like an hour to get that go away. That's how strong that alkalinity is because, you know, from on a chemistry scale, you've got acidity. So hydrochloric acid or a lemon, citric acid that's acid. Alkalinity is at the extreme opposite. It's bleach. Now, when I was taking, so I have 2 chemistry degrees because hello, I'm a geek. And in my first lab, where we were working directly with chemicals, I never forget this. The lab safety person said, "Bleach will eat your eyeballs out just as quickly as sulfuric acid." I mean, that's pretty much what they said. It's like you got to wear your goggles. You got to protect your eyes. And if you were to spill bleach on your hand or on your fingers, one of the things you're going to see right away is that it gets slippery. And the reason why it gets slippery is because it's dissolving your skin. Bleach is bad. Alkaline water is going to strip the mucus your bladder needs to defend itself. Now, listen, there are a lot of companies out there who are million and billion dollar companies who are capitalizing on this myth that diseases are caused by an overly acidic body, and you should be drinking alkaline water to neutralize that. You have to understand that the alkalinity in your bloodstream is controlled to like 1,000%. Your body is already on top of it. And if your alkalinity or your acidity changes like by 1%, you're probably going to be dead. The human body is very, very good at monitoring acid levels in your bloodstream. So don't believe anybody who says you have an acid body causing all these diseases. It's just not true. At least I don't believe that that's true. What we do have some control over is the pH of our urine because that's determined by what we eat. So, for example, champagne. Champagne tends to be very high in acid as well as alcohol. So when that acidity arrives in your bladder, it's going to cause a flare if you've got a Hunner's lesion. No doubt about that. And there's also a little bit of nuance in there too, because, and this is where they capitalize on your lack of knowledge. When you eat something really, really acidic, as your body digests it and metabolizes it, it becomes really, really alkaline. And so some people say, well, wait a second, that lemon is going to become alkaline in my body. Isn't that going to hurt? Or isn't that going to help? So that lemon is really not acidic when you put it in your mouth. When you put it in your body, it becomes alkaline. And that's true. It does become alkaline because metabolism happens. Our goal here is to avoid extremes. We don't want anything highly acidic or highly alkaline. We want to be kind of pH neutral. We don't want to traumatize anything in your bladder wall. This is why when you're flaring, you should be drinking water, you should be drinking milk, maybe, and chamomile herbal tea, or if you can take it, peppermint herbal tea. Those are the best things you could do. because our goal is to try to protect this tissue. Hey, I need to take a bathroom break. I just need to pee. I'll be right back. All right. I am really trying to push fluid right now. I think so. For those of you who came in late, you haven't seen me for a month because everybody got sick on Thanksgiving. My entire family was exposed to the influenza H3N2 subclade K, very, very severe influenza. And it started 2 days after Thanksgiving with a sore throat so severe it felt like razor blades, like I thought it was strep throat. Turned out it wasn't. And then 2 days after that, the congestion began, and it was this really thick green gunk in our nose and our lungs. It was just everywhere. This is a very, very, very contagious, very severe flu. So I was at the ER twice. I went into AFib. My heart just went bonkers and I had to call an ambulance. And what was hysterical is that when the paramedics got here and the ambulance got here, I opened my front door and they yelled, "Is this for you?" And I went, "Yes." And they said, "Just get in the ambulance." They didn't even come in. And so, I grabbed my coat and my little bag of little supplies, and then they shared. I was the fifth person they picked up that day with the same thing. And I think what happened is I just got very, very, very dehydrated, and that's why I probably went into AFib. Uh, um, I had pneumonia in my left lung, 3 antibiotics, amoxicillin, Augmentin, Z-Pak. I'm on blood thinners now for the AFib, and double the heart med. I am annoyed. This is like the great Thanksgiving. We had such a great time. My first wonderful Thanksgiving in years. And damn it, we all got sick. And I think that my defenses are down because I wasn't exposed to a lot of flus and colds caring for my parents. And so my immune system was just overrun by this flu. And several other people were also very, very ill from this. And it's not in the flu shot. So I beg of you, as you ponder Christmas this year, some of you already have this in your homes. If you've got anybody with a sore throat in your home and you're supposed to go to grandma's house, do not do that and expose her. This is a brutal flu, way worse than COVID, at least for me. Way worse than COVID. So anyway, I am pushing fluids. Like I still feel weak. I genuinely, I mean, I'm just not myself yet. On a scale of 1 to 10, I'm probably a 6. And this is 3 weeks later. Ugh, brutal. All right, let's go back. Enough of me. Thank you for listening to my story, my sob story. Kayleen says, we're getting a green Christmas, which is what I need. All right, so no snow. Excellent. Caitlin's been a very, very long flare. Dee says, I'm so glad to see you feeling better. My IC specialist, any IC specialist recommendations in Canada? I live in Toronto and I've literally not been able to find one specialist here. Yes, honey, the Curtis Nickel retired. And most patients in Toronto come over to Detroit to see Ken Peters at Corewell Health, because it's like a very, very easy trip to get there. And Ken Peters is one of the top doctors in the world for IC, and they will work with you. And if you're going to stay for a couple of days, they can get all the testing done in a couple of days. They're really, really good. Listen, for those of you that are on YouTube, I literally can't see anything. If you're typing in the chat, I can't see it. If anybody wants to test the chat, that would be great. So YouTube, I'm not skipping you. I just can't see anything happening over there. I know you're watching because I see people watching. Here's the issue. We just had a meeting right before Thanksgiving of all the IC groups in the world. It's part of the International IC Patient Network that's facilitated by a wonderful lady named Matilda, who's in Europe. And we are in a period of reckoning right now. And what I mean by that is we have lost to retirement and to illness our top IC doctors in the world. We're down to, there are 3 top doctors now in the United States that I would suggest. Ken Peters at Corewell Health, Rob Molden at Long Island. They're both probably within 5 years of retirement. And the remarkable Henry Lai, L-A-I. Henry now is the leader of the AUA IC committee. He teaches the IC class, and he is now becoming the chairman of the urology department at the University of Iowa. So for anybody in the Midwest, he's taking the place of Carl Kreter, and he is really, I've been in many meetings with him. He is the calm port in the storm. He is grounded. His knowledge level is exceptional. His understanding of phenotyping is exceptional. I just adore what he is doing in the IC world. He is leading, well, when we had an IC research program at the National Institutes of Health, which we do not have right now, first time since the 80s that there is not a funded program to study IC and pelvic pain, which is heartbreaking. But he has been playing a very important role in a lot of those discussions in the last 5 years or so. So Henry Lai, L-A-I, at the University of Iowa. There's also Elise Day, D-E. I think she's in New York. She is exceptional. But again, most of the old guard is gone now. And our new guard is slim around the world. So we have a lot of work to do in the IC patient community. We, one of the points that I make is that a lot of your local doctors literally cannot go to urology conferences. If they're lucky enough to go to a urology conference 1 every 10 years, I can guarantee you they're going to be in the cancer classes. They're not going to be in the IC classes. So educating doctors is difficult right now. But that's where you come in. because you are a vector into every single clinic in the country. And if you bring our patient education materials, you can educate them. You can print out the AUA guidelines, which talks about phenotyping. You can print out articles on our website. You can, I mean, we've got so much insight. You can bring the diet guide. You can bring the flare guide. Please show them to your doctor, because I can guarantee you that there are other patients in their clinic who would really benefit from this info. You know, we just don't have, there's no money right now anywhere to do robust educations right now. We don't have the pharmaceutical companies anymore. They're pretty much done. We have one study that we did 2 years ago with a pharmaceutical company. I can't say their name yet. They had good results with their study, so they're continuing early next year. So I believe that we will be working with them. But our pharmaceutical grant money is pretty much gone. Our federal money is gone. The only money we have to do any IC outreach comes from you. That's it. When you buy something in the IC Network shop, when you subscribe to our magazine and newsletter, like if you think that this is important for us to do, then we need your help, because times are rough for everybody right now. They're rough. They're rough for me. They're rough for the IC Network. They're rough for everybody. The nonprofits are really struggling right now. So I want you to remember that you are not a passive patient. You're the voice of the IC world. You're the hands of the IC world. You're the one that can make it better in your community. You're the one that can educate your doctors by bringing stuff in. And I just, please, we can't give up and curl up into a ball, man. We just got to get louder, and we got to get more assertive, and we got to get more dedicated. If not you, who? I can't do it all. I can't do it all. It's impossible. I cannot do it all. I don't live in your community. I don't see your doctor, but you can. All right. Sue says, I love making steak fajitas at home with some refried beans and maybe my own rice. Just use the seasonings. They don't flare you. I usually eat a good option to when you eat out. You can ask them to season it lightly. Yeah. We have a local restaurant with Indian and Nepalese food from Nepal, and it's fantastic. It is absolutely fantastic. Kayleen said, beans are good for IBS-C, which keeps your bladder healthy. Very true. I usually put navy beans or pinto beans in the soups that I make. But right now, I made split pea soup 2 nights ago, so I'll be on my 3rd night of split pea soup tonight. You know, and I got to say something. So, I don't know about you, but I have most of my life had a very sensitive, delicate stomach. There's no doubt about that. That's one of the reasons why I'm not a foodie. And as I've gotten older, I have consistently struggled with gas on my stomach. You know, a little bit of belching here. I mean, not a lot, not painfully so, but it's like a little burp here and a little burp there. My problem is when I get gas in my stomach, my heart throws PVCs. My heart's all messed up from Elavil. I took Elavil 30 years ago, and it changed the conductivity of my heart. So my heart's weird. It's just weird. That's all it is. So anyway, I don't like having gas in my stomach because I don't like to feel PVCs. I don't like to feel my heart bouncing around in my chest. So, you know, I thought I was being perfect. I mean, I thought that I was being really, really perfect. And yet, you know, even last summer and this fall, I still had moments when I had to do Gaviscon. My preferred stomach chewable is Gaviscon because it puts a layer of foam on the top of your stomach that suppresses gas. Anyway, I don't know. It just got a little bit worse. And so I just dove into FODMAPs again. I just like, all right, clearly I'm missing something. There is something in my diet that has a lot of FODMAPs in it that is causing a lot of this gas. So you know what it was? Apple juice. There was another fruit that was really high in FODMAPs. It was getting me. But the thing that was getting me the most every single day was my favorite bread, Ezekiel bread. Like, I love Ezekiel bread. It's not made from flour. It's made from sprouts. It's got lots of sprouts in it from lots of protein sources. Very high in protein, very high in fiber. Tastes great, makes great sandwiches. And yet, for the first time, I saw a direct connection between eating that bread and getting a gassy stomach. And it just didn't even dawn on me that the bread would be high in FODMAPs because it's recommended for people with IBS. So I cut it out and I went to gluten-free muffins and sourdough. And you know what? It's gone. It's mostly gone. Like, I can do sourdough toast and I'm fine. I do Ezekiel toast, man, I'm belching. And it's just, and then the other thing is my sister for my birthday gave me some of her enzymes, and that really helps too. So I don't think I really had a good understanding of the role of FODMAPs in creating stomach distress. We did a survey years and years ago, because if you look at all the old IC research, they talk about the high incidence of IBS, but they don't talk about the high incidence of stomach distress. And our study, I think of 1,000 patients, showed that 90% of IC patients appeared to have stomach issues. And for some, it was every single day. And for me, it was kind of every single day. And anyway, I would start reading a little bit more about FODMAPs if you're struggling with stomach distress, and just cut back on the, like apples. I was shocked. I made a mulled apple cider like 2 weeks ago when I was coughing my brains out, and it immediately upset my stomach. I was shocked. It's like, oh my God, apple juice is high in FODMAPs. Crazy. Catherine said, I saw a doctor at Sunnybrook Hospital. She diagnosed me with IC and recommended Cysto-Urol to me. You can purchase it on Amazon. I hope this helps. You may look at Cysto-Urol. Cysto-Urol is not a supplement that we have pushed. And let me look at it to refresh my memory as to why. I mean, because really, based upon your phenotype, there are different supplements that would be helpful. So our best supplement for bladder wall issues is Bladder Builder by far. It got the best reviews on Amazon. It's got the best reviews from us. So let me look at Cysto-Urol. Let's see what's in it. Oh, this is CystoQ. Yeah, this is the old CystoQ formula. So Far Laboratories, the company that made CystoQ, went out of business. They went bankrupt. And so the lab that used to make their supplements actually got, because there was a lot of debt there, they were able to take control of the company. So the reason why this kind of fell out of favor years and years ago is that it's really just based on quercetin. It does not include those other supplement ingredients that we have now come to see as beneficial, specifically chondroitin to coat the bladder wall. So the reason why they recommended it is because CystoQ was actually approved by the Canadian government as a treatment for IC. And so it is what it is. But we stopped selling that product a decade ago. Actually longer than that, because again, when the research came out that showed that the combination of quercetin and chondroitin was far more effective, we all switched from Sister Q to Sister Protec. And then Sister Protec is now an older formula, and pretty much everybody has transitioned to try some of the other supplements now. So in 2025 and 2026, again, your supplement choice is going to be dependent upon your phenotype. So if we're dealing with Hunner's lesions, then it's lactoferrin, because we have research showing that lactoferrin helped Hunner's lesions heal, red inflamed bladders became pink and healthy, and systemic inflammation measured through blood testing disappeared. And when they looked at the bladder showed profound healing. So Hunner's lesions, lactoferrin. For estrogen atrophy, bladder wall driven, what makes the most sense is a chondroitin-based supplement. So that's where we're looking at bladder builder, bladder rest, cystomend, or cystoprotect. And that's kind of the order that I prioritize them in. But it depends upon the person. Everybody's different. If you are a widespread pain patient, you got the sensitive skin, wicked sense of smell, we know our target needs to be the central nervous system. We know that your symptoms are being driven by a very sensitive nervous system. So that's where the PEA 500, or the P-leaf come in. And here, I think I have. Here it is. Here it is. And you guys, you can tell I'm not dressed up. This is me today. So P-leaf or Peora. So Peora is available on the IC Network website. P-leaf is available on Amazon. So these are the two supplement products. So a lot of people ask, what do I do? Well, my phenotype is pelvic floor widespread pain. Every time they've looked in my bladder, I've had a healthy bladder wall. So I know I don't need to do anything for my bladder wall. My focus is on calming my nervous system down. And so I do the PEA products, and they've been really life-changing for me. Except for my mastectomy incisions, I wish that they helped more with that. But for all the other nerve sensitivity, Pure has been fabulous, at least for me personally. So that's something that you can try. The PEA study published in 2019 showed that 87% of IC patients who used it experienced a significant and progressive reduction in pain over time. Very well tolerated, no side effects in the IC study, no known drug interactions. I have an article on it on the front page of the IC Network, icnetwork.org, with links to all the research studies if you want to do it. Generally, it's used for a longer period of time. It doesn't behave like a pain med, like an opiate. It doesn't work that way. If this is something that you have to take little bits over time, like literally I take 1 or 2 capsules a night, depending upon where my nervous system is at any given point. And the nice thing too is it's durable. What do we mean by durable? That you can stop using it and the effects last for a significant period of time, 6 weeks, 8 weeks, couple of months. And so I stop it frequently. And then as soon as I feel my skin starting to get a little sensitive again, then I know that's my cue that I need to start taking it again. Oh, my muscles are tight. One of the downsides of coughing is that if you happen to, craziest thing happened. Craziest thing happened. When they were doing my x-rays for my pneumonia 2 weeks ago, it said that there were clips in my chest from my surgery. I had a double mastectomy for breast cancer. There are clips sitting in my chest. And the radiologist twice said, yeah, there are like 3 clips in my chest. And I'm like, is that why these incisions have hurt so long? So now I have an appointment with the surgeon in January because my incisions hurt all the time. It's been 18 months. Every single day I have pain and discomfort from these mastectomy incisions, and I'm annoyed. So we'll see. Maybe that's why, that's why they're so annoying. Hi, Gay. Sue says, I'm curious if others have this. If you eat something acidic, especially alcohol, I feel pain in my bladder within 15 minutes. I know that it can't have already reached my bladder. I just don't understand why the trigger happened so quickly. Not sure, hun, but that's common. Diane said, so sorry that you were so sick. My son-in-law started with a high fever a day ago, hoping it's not the nasty virus you had. We haven't been around him, but have been around our daughter. It's her husband, so I'll ask about the sore throat. Please do. Caddy says, have I heard of Mendit surgery? No, I don't know what that means. Caddy said, glad you're better. I had the bacterial virus for 6 weeks. Yeah. Well, it's not a bacterial virus. It's a bacteria and a virus. The virus causes so much congestion that you end up with a bacterial pneumonia. Lisa said, I was told by my urogynecologist that I have IC, but I do get UTIs and possibly an inflammatory condition. Also, if I eat a trigger food, I get vaginal burning with a half an hour. And I do have stomach distress too. It's easier to just not eat. When I keep a plant-based diet and reduce carbs, I feel better. So, it's unusual for a trigger food to cause vaginal burning because that food doesn't reach the vagina. That generally, when you think about when you eat or drink something, it gets absorbed into your bloodstream, and then it's sent to your kidneys, and your kidneys will pull out whatever it needs to pull out, dump it in your urine, and you pee it out. So the reason why the bladder starts screaming after eating a trigger food is because the bladder wall has been irritated by a metabolite of that food. So I don't know how or why you're getting vaginal burning, but I do have one idea. When we think about vaginal burning, we're going to think about a couple of different things. We're going to think about estrogen atrophy. We're going to think about bacterial vaginosis. And of course, we're going to think about yeast, which I happen to have a yeast infection right now. In fact, literally as I said it, I felt that. I just started my medication yesterday. So if you happen to have an overgrowth of fungus in your vagina, if you eat sugar, if you eat carbs, that's going to feed the yeast and it is going to grow. So, and potentially cause more burning. We know that candida can be in the vagina. We know that candida can be on the vulva. It can be burrowed into the skin of the vulva, but candida can also be in the bladder. And it was our own National Institutes of Health who made that discovery. And they were able to confirm that the more fungus you had in your urine, the more severe the pain became. So, Lisa, I think that that's a very, very interesting symptom. Also, when you're doing a plant-based diet and reduced carb, you're doing reduced carbs, you're not feeding the yeast, right? So maybe you've got a candida issue going on. Diane said, I have IBS too, and it stinks because apples are fine with IC, but not IBS, so it restricts my diet even more. Yep. Diane says, how do you keep a plant-based diet and reduce carbs? Well, you eat veg and tofu and things like that. I mean, the carbs pretty much are going to be the breads, and the pastas. But now we have high protein breads, we have high protein pastas, and we have high protein yogurt. I do phage, F-A-G-E, no fat protein yogurt, and it's great. It's great. And I think that's knock on wood, one reason why my guts have been okay after all the antibiotics that have been on this month. Whew. Loretta says, I empathize. Eating with IC and IBS is not fun. I think IBS is more restrictive, kind of. Crystal said, what do I think of Cystomend? Cystomend it takes what I call the kitchen sink approach to it. Cystomend is probably our most robust supplement with the most ingredients and the most methods of action. And so, I mean, the blessing here is that you got a lot of options you can try. Bladder Builder outperforms Cystomend from a review standpoint, but some patients love Cystomend. Other people love Bladder Builder. My throat's getting a little scratchy. Crystal said, I'm trying to get my Urogyne to prescribe me Vibegron because trospium is not working for my urgency. I believe my IC is connected to my dysregulated nervous system. My cystoscopy looked normal as well, but IC got worse after a UTI. What are my thoughts? Well, anytime you have a UTI, and that UTI does damage to the bladder wall. I mean, the bacteria burrow into the cells, turn them into bacteria factories, and then the cells break open. So you basically end up with the equivalent of tunnels throughout your bladder wall as the infection goes deeper and deeper and deeper. And I can show you pictures of that if you're interested in seeing what that looks like. It's absolutely fascinating. So the nerves, the alpha afferent nerves in the bladder wall are essentially inflamed and irritated when you have an infection because the nerves are in the bladder wall and the bacteria have opened holes in the bladder wall and now urine is getting to the nerves and, it's chaos. As your bladder wall heals, those nerves should get protected again. It's important that you understand what the quality and health of your skin is, because if your skin is dry and you're in estrogen atrophy, it's an open door to infection. And so what we want to do is try to get your skin as strong and healthy as possible. And we would do that using an estrogen cream. So concept number one is, why are you vulnerable to infection? If that's estrogen atrophy, we can improve that with some topical estrogen. What would be interesting, rather than Vibegron, what about Mirbitric or Mirabegron? I don't know if Vibegron is an anticholinergic linked to cognitive decline. Let me look. Sorry, I've got cords going over my dang keyboard here. Let's see, Vibegron, anticholinergic. Let's just see if it is. It is not. So it's Gemtesta. It is not an anticholinergic. Okay, might be worth a shot, hun. Might be worth a shot. Your bladder is like mine. You got a healthy bladder. I've always had a healthy bladder. You and I both have a dysregulated nervous system. We have the widespread pain, but we also might have some estrogen atrophy going on. We also might have some tight pelvic floor muscles going on. Lisa says she does have estrogen atrophy. Yep. Crystal said, the holidays make my IC worse. All the stress of spending money and craziness make me so stressed out, and I feel it in my bladder and my pelvic floor. Yeah, that's, aside from this year, which was just ridiculous because I've been sick since Thanksgiving, I love everything up to Christmas Day. Like, get me through to Christmas Eve, and to me, that was the best part of the season. I always found Christmas Day to be very, very stressful, in great part because my mother was always stressed out. And my sister and I, after my mom passed away 3 years ago, we had been talking about this because, um, um, she has a family, I don't have a family. I'm the aunt. And being the aunt sucks because we always feel left out in a certain way. Like, literally. I mean, I always thought I'd have 5 children and a big family. I see stop that because remember, my symptoms started when I was 13. And I'm still to this day at the age of 65 stunned that I don't have my own family. I don't. And so anyway, the point that I was trying to make is that, I was kind of my brother and I were kind of oh, don't forget about the aunt and uncle. And it felt awful. And it wasn't my sister. It was kind of my mother. It was just expectations that made Christmas Day really, really difficult. It was like we never had a choice. We had to go to where the kids were. Anyway, I'm not saying this well. And Janice, if you're listening to this, I really, honey, I'm not saying anything. I love you dearly and I love your family dearly. And if I could be there, I would be there. I'm just trying to explain my head a little bit. So after my mom died, my parents died, that first Christmas was horrific. I put a brave face on. I mean, I was crying every day anyway. I mean, it was just the trauma of losing both your parents. I mean, my heart breaks for the Biffle family and for, the people lost in Bondi and Rob Reiner's family. I mean, what a crazy, sad, deeply heartbreaking period that we've gone through in the last week. What am I trying to say here? So my sister and I, who, we're just, she helps me run the IC network. I love her dearly. She's basically my twin. I just love her dearly. She's not my real twin, but she feels like it. We just decided that the holidays are for kids. And that when you're an adult going through the holidays, you are overcome by loss also. That you've lost parents, you've lost family members, you've lost friends, and the holidays change. They change in that context. So now when we talk to each other, it's just like de-stress, de-stress, de-stress. Like no expectations. We're going to go slow. We're going to go easy. We're going to be gentle. We're going to be kind. No expectation. And I opted out. I emailed her. I mean, I texted her this morning and I opted out of Christmas. I'm going to be alone on Christmas. And the reason why is that, number one, I'm still sick and I don't believe that I'm strong enough to drive, 40 miles. I just don't think so. I can barely drive to town right now. I get really weak. I mean, this flu and this pneumonia was a bitch. And, the rule I said to her a couple days ago is, okay, we'll see how I feel. If I'm feeling good, I'm going to get there. If I'm not feeling good, I'm going to stay home. But then I said, but here's the rule. If anybody's sick, I'm not coming. because I cannot afford to get another virus. I'm still dealing with pneumonia. And she told me this morning, yeah, we've got sick kids now. So anyway, I opted out of Christmas, and of course I cried for about 15 minutes because nobody wants to be alone on Christmas. But it's absolutely the right decision. You get to come first. Plus, we're going to have a horrible storm. I mean, we're here in California, we're having heavy rain all the way through Christmas Day, and I don't want to drive sick with pneumonia through a terrible rainstorm. So anyway, so for anybody out there who's going to be alone over the holidays, girl, you're not alone. Guy, you're not alone. It happens. And I fully intend, I'm going to make myself a little turkey dinner, and I'm going to watch a good movie, and I'm going to play Fortnite or whatever. We'll get through it. We'll figure it out. Lisa said, I was sick last Christmas and stayed home too. Melly said, it's very hard. I don't blame you. Peggy says, may you and yours have a very Merry Christmas. We're going to try. Lori says, how do you calm a dysregulated nervous system? Well, my friend, if you get our book, the IC Flare Guide, it talks about exactly what to do to calm a dysregulated nervous system. Basically, this is about getting your brain out of fight or flight, and there are very specific ways to do that. As long as you're in fight or flight, your pain is going to be amplified. You're going to be stressed. You're going to have a flare if you are in the widespread pain group. So it's all tips that we're going to do to calm that central nervous system and get it out of fight or flight. Loretta said, I can't find a doctor in my area who would do compounding. Never used to be a problem, but it certainly is as new doctors come in and older doctors leave or retire. I'm so frustrated. Yeah, but usually you go to a compounding pharmacy, not your doctor. Karen said, can I repeat what helps with nerve pain? Yes. Pea leaf and Peora. And we just got a shipment of pea leaf, like literally Peora, like 2 days ago. It's in the IC Network shop. If you order it tonight, we can ship it out tomorrow. At least we'll try. And you guys, you know what would be a really cool thing is if you became a member of the IC Network and got our magazine, the IC Optimist. That's where we do our best work. And that's what keeps me doing these support group meetings. You're right, Loretta. Loretta said you need a script for compounding. Agreed. But most gynecologists are perfectly fine with a compounded estrogen. I mean, it's so routine. What kind of compounded do you need? What were you looking for? Crystal said, I started antidepressants to help me get out of fight or flight because I was going down a rabbit hole and becoming so nervous and depressed. You know, Crystal, I mean, that's cool. Some of us I can't do antidepressants. They make my heart race, and they are the reason why I have heart problems now was Elavil. So, this is where we have to embrace the concept that our history of trauma leaves a legacy in our nervous system, whether it's physical trauma or emotional trauma, whether it's bullying or abuse. Our brain remembers everything. And what the research shows for patients who have multiple pain conditions is a brain in a constant state of fight or flight. That 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, our brain is behaving as if our life is at stake. Our heart rate is up, our blood pressure is up, our muscles are tight because our brain is preparing us to fight or flee or freeze. And this could be a legacy of childhood trauma. So for me, I grew up in a neighborhood with a kid who became a rapist and murderer. The year I went away to college, he raped and murdered my neighbor. I did not leave my home without fear from 4th grade through high school. I lived with fear every single day because I was a favorite target. And when they told me that he had raped and murdered my neighbor, I was in college at UC Santa Barbara, and I just collapsed and sobbing. Because I remember that I was an RA in the dorms, and a couple of guys. I lived with the guys. They had the girls live with the guys, and the guys. Anyway, I lived on the guys' side of the dorm, and they just came and took care of me, and I was just hysterical because I knew that that could have very easily been me. 100%, no doubt about it. So I want you to think about what living in that constant state of fight or flight does to our central nervous system. It becomes habituated. I was in fight or flight from the 4th grade all the way through to the age of 35 until I finally took an anxiety management class that taught me how to turn it off. And I think that now that I'm 65 years old and I really look back at my life, and I realize that every decision that I have made in my life has been qualified by that trauma and that fear. I didn't do a lot of things because I was afraid. If people asked me to do things, I said no because my brain was trying to protect me. That was one of the things in the anxiety management class that I took when I was 35. The instructor said, "How many of you say no to every invitation?" And we're all looking at each other. The entire class raised their hand. Like, you too? Like, I literally wanted to accept every invitation, and yet out of my mouth, before they could even finish the invitation, my brain said no. I never understood that. Never. He goes, "You know what that is?" We're like, "No." He goes, "That's fight or flight. That's your brain trying to keep you home." Your brain remembers the stress and trauma. It doesn't want you to go out in the danger area. It wants you to stay home. And there are other people who are the opposite. Their home was their scary place. They grew up with an alcoholic parent. They grew up with abuse. They grew up with whatever bad things that can often happen to children. And so for them, they jump on every invitation. Their brain is saying, "Get out, get out, get out." My brain was exact opposite. My brain was stay home, stay home, stay home. And my brain still does that today. I turned down a trip to India to talk about IC at a conference out of fear. I've turned down many invitations to go speak on IC out of fear, and I've accepted some, but I've said no to far more. And so what I'm trying to say to you, Crystal, is that antidepressants will not address the underlying trauma. And until we address the underlying trauma and reprogram your brain out of fight or flight, it's going to haunt you in a way. So after I hit last year, after I had breast cancer and I had surgery that was very traumatic, and my parents had died, and honestly, a year ago, I was doing these meetings. I'm putting a brave front on, but I was a wreck. My fight or flight was off the charts. I was crying every day. And I was becoming afraid to do things again. I was afraid to take my blood pressure. I'll tell you honestly, I haven't taken my blood pressure on my own for 2 years. I developed this irrational fear to taking my blood pressure because I was taking my dad's blood pressure when he almost died. So I was talking to my doctor about it, and she's like, "You need to talk to somebody." And I went, "Yeah, I do. I even though I have a master's in psych and I consider myself very well adjusted, it's like, man, I need help." I was just overwhelmed and overloaded with stress and trauma. And I signed up for EMDR therapy. EMDR therapy. And it was fantastic. It's not talk therapy. I'm like not interested in going into the intricate details of my trauma. I know what they are. I don't need to keep talking about them. What I needed was a method that would try to bring my brain out of that trauma in the first place, that would reprocess my experience of the trauma in a different way to not trigger fight or flight. And it was life-changing. I'm so glad that I did it. Because I don't live, so EMDR therapy is all about teaching your brain and your nervous system how to react to trauma in a different way, so you don't get so upset about it, so that you don't become super anxious and all that sort of stuff. And they can do eye movement. What we did was we did tapping like this. And what the therapist had me do is we started first with my parents' death, because basically my mom, I made all the decisions. I made the decision to turn off my dad's pacemaker. I made the decision. I was the lead on that, and they died on my watch. And so we went through some of those events, and we used a series of tapping to teach my brain to react in a different way. And you know what? It was awesome. Then the next week we did the cancer. It was awesome. And then the week after that, what did we do? We did some IC trauma. Because when I started the IC network, people were very, very mean to me. People really, really did not want me to start the IC network. And they basically threatened me. It was very subtle, but it was very devious, and it was very, very cruel. And so I spent a session on that. And then finally, we were kind of getting down. I think I had 5 total sessions. I dealt with some workplace trauma. And then finally, at our last appointment, she said, well, what do you want to work on? I went, I want to work on the childhood trauma. Because I never told anybody about the childhood trauma for 40 years. I only started talking about it like 15 years ago. And golly, it worked. It was so good. There's grief that our lives were shaped by trauma, but it's not the end of our story. The blessing here is that, a lot of people say, should I have children when I've had IC? And I went, oh, hell yeah. Come on, you're going to be the best mom ever, or the best dad ever, because you will never, ever, ever walk away from somebody in pain, because you know what it's like to be alone. And that same thing is true with trauma. Now that we understand how the body adapts to trauma, we call it a central nervous system dysregulation or a central nervous system maladaptation. And we start talking about it. It comes up every day when I'm working with patients. There are a lot of patients who have central nervous system dysregulation from trauma. And again, the most common scenario is growing up with a violent alcoholic parent. That's very, very common. So, Crystal, I guess what I would say to you is, I'm not listen, I did antidepressants too. I just had a lot of reactions to them. Really think about, start reading about EMDR therapy, because it might help more than just an antidepressant, because it retrains your brain to think in a different way about it. It has eased so much of my stress. And I'm happy to share that my blood pressure is 118/70, something like that. Now, granted, that's with medication. Whoa, somebody's calling me. and I do not have my phone here. Hey, you guys, let me just take I need to pee again because I have a yeast infection. Let's go take a quick bathroom break, and I'm going to go grab my phone. All right. All righty. You can go short, can't you? Yes, you can. All righty then. I got this really cute little polar fleece jacket, brand new, at an estate sale for $10. Still had the label on it. It has now become my favorite thing to wear in the house. Okay, so so we've been here for 2 hours. And again, I want to speak to anybody who's having a flare right now, anybody who's frustrated and upset because you don't feel well during the holidays. Number one, I'm really sorry that you're having a flare, but you're not alone. You are so not alone. And this is the time to rest, to recover, to go slow. I have a lot of articles on surviving the holidays on the IC Network website. And I just want to go through a couple of things that might help. So hold on a sec. Because this is also a time when you might feel compelled to hide your symptoms because you don't want to bother other people. And it's like, no, you get to come first too. Okay, so let's go through this. Number one, IC does not take a holiday. We all might want a holiday, but the harsh reality is IC and pelvic pain is a chronic condition that can bring on a flare without warning, including a day or two before the holidays or on Christmas Eve or Christmas Day. You might feel completely fine on the outside while you're managing a flare on the inside that a lot of people don't know you're dealing with. So when the holidays arrive with all their expectations and gatherings and long stretches away from home, the IC doesn't disappear. In fact, they can get harder to manage. So what makes the holidays even more difficult for some of us is travel. Traveling is exhausting and anxiety producing, and long car rides can trigger pelvic floor flares and also anxiety about restroom access. Sitting for long periods of time can certainly exacerbate pelvic floor dysfunction. Sleeping in unfamiliar beds, not having an easy bathroom. Listen, traveling is difficult. I'm not saying don't do it, but you got to understand your body is going to be a little bit stressed, so you got to take extra care. And also, long events can test your endurance. I mean, having to be at somebody's house for 8 or 10 hours is hard. 2 hours would be a lot easier than 10 hours. It's okay for you to shorten it. If you're not feeling well, if you just want to go for an hour or two, say hi to everybody, tell everybody you love them. And then if you need to leave early, it's okay. You can leave early. Here's what patients struggle with. Patients hope their families will understand the following. Number one, that we're not being dramatic, that our pain is absolutely real. Icy pain is not imagined, exaggerated, or something that can be mind over matter. It's a genuine physical condition that causes real suffering. And while many of us try to stay upbeat so we don't worry others, that's not really fair. Like I said when we were talking earlier, my mother was very, very good at guilting me to try to do holiday stuff, even though I felt terrible. So a last minute cancellation isn't about being flaky or a lack of care. It's about survival. It's about self-preservation. That's why I'm saying no to going out for Christmas this year. Food choices are not about being picky. One of the simplest way to manage your IC is monitoring your foods and drinks, because common triggers include acidic foods, caffeine, alcohol, spicy dishes, artificial sweeteners. So when one of us declines grandma's famous cranberry sauce or passes on the wine toast, it's not personal. We're protecting ourselves from days' pain and discomfort. So offering safe alternatives without making a fuss is one of the kindest things that our families can do. More often than not, we're already feeling some shame about how our food and beverage choices differ from others. So instead, please give us options. Please understand, too, that when we say no, we're not trying to avoid people. We're trying to manage our symptoms. Hold that thought, Wendy. Loud, crowded environments can increase tension in the pelvic floor, which worsens symptoms. Honestly, we want to connect, but we just have to do it in a way that allows our body to respond. I've only been driving for 4 days. I mean, that's how sick I was. And I went to the supermarket yesterday, and there's so many people in the supermarket. I really struggled. I mean, I was wearing my mask, but I just wanted to get out of there as quickly as possible. There were just too many people there, and I was feeling a little overwhelmed. Many IC patients feel guilt, even when we shouldn't. Many people with chronic pain feel guilty about their limitations, and that certainly applies to those of us with IC. We feel guilty for not being fun enough, or for needing accommodation, or possibly burdening others, and that guilt is heavy. In fact, we often do a decent amount of mental gymnastics about whether to attend or risk being bothersome or skipping an event, feeling more guilt for not being there. So when someone reassures us that we're valued for who we are, not what we can do, that guilt feels lighter. Literally, the last thing my sister texted to me was, "We love you. We love you." We need to hear that from our family. Resting is not laziness. Though IC affects the bladder, it impacts the whole body, and it's exhausting. Our bodies work hard to function at any sort of normal capacity, and sometimes we just need to rest. If we need to lie down, skip an activity, take a break, it's not because we're unmotivated or uninterested. Rest is a medical necessity, not a luxury. So being encouraged to rest by our family is a tremendous gift to an IC patient. And I'm telling you, every family gathering, there's at least one person, usually it was my brother, who would get very quiet and go into another room. Or they would find a book and they would read that book, and everybody else was like, "Jack, where are you going? We need you, Jack." And he's like, over in a corner, being quiet. And that, we didn't understand that. Now we know that now we understand that a little bit more. And that's okay. If somebody needs to take a time out and step away from the stress and frenzy, let them. Let them. Sometimes showing up for an hour is a victory. Sometimes connecting over the phone or a video call is what we can do. So please meet us where we are without disappointment or pressure, because this allows us to participate in a way that feels safe and sustainable. Connection is about presence. It's not about hours. So how can families help us? Number one, provide a quiet space. If you're hosting, designate a room where your loved one can rest if they need to. Let them know it's available without having to ask. Simply knowing there's a retreat option can reduce anxiety. Number two, understand bathroom access. Make sure they know where the bathroom is, that it's easily accessible, and that they won't be questioned about frequent trips to the bathroom. If you're planning an outing, choose a location where there are plenty of bathrooms. Shorten events or offer flexible timing. Consider hosting gatherings in shorter time blocks, or let your loved one know they can arrive late or leave early without any hard feelings. Flexibility removes the pressure to endure beyond capacity. Ask what would help rather than assuming what would help. If you're a family member, ask the IC patient, what would make this easier for you? Everyone's IC is different. What helps one person may not help another. So let the patient guide. Offer a comfortable seat. Seating can sometimes be challenging at larger gatherings. Even something as simple as offering a soft chair or avoiding a deep, low couch can make a big difference. Don't make the IC or pelvic pain patients sit on folding chairs that are hard. That's probably going to hurt. Allow them to participate in ways that fit their energy. Maybe they can't cook for hours, but they can arrange a centerpiece when sitting. Maybe they can't stay the whole gathering, but they can join for dessert. Honor whatever level of participation they can offer. And be gracious if they need to leave early. Respond with kindness, not disappointment. A simple, we'll miss you, but we understand, can relieve an enormous amount of emotional burden. Let them know that their health comes first and that you will find other times to connect. The holidays can still be meaningful even when they look different than they used to. Connection doesn't depend on a marathon gatherings or elaborate meals. Sometimes the quietest moments, a short conversation, a shared cup of herbal tea, or a video call from the comfort of home becomes the most cherished. And for families, remember that you don't have to fix IC or make symptoms go away. Patience, empathy, and flexibility go further than any attempt to problem solve. Believing your loved ones, supporting their boundaries, creating space for them to participate in ways that feel safe are gifts that matter more than you may realize. And for patients, setting limits is an act of care, not selfishness. You deserve to participate in the holidays in ways that protect your health and honor your needs. You are not a burden. You aren't being too sensitive. You are responding to a real medical condition, and the people who love you want to honor your limits. Many families find that when traditions are adapted to be gentler and more inclusive, everyone benefits. And in the end, the holidays are ultimately about love and presence and connection. And all of these are possible even when IC is part of the picture. So this season, may we all find ways to celebrate that honor both the joy of togetherness and the very real needs of the bodies we live in. Listen, that was written by Stacy Shannon. Stacy is amazing. She is an IC patient who has her own blog. She has her own community that she's built, but she also has been dedicated to helping IC patients for many years. And she has been one of the featured writers of the IC network in the last 6-7 years. And she does a brilliant job. And she's really good at stepping in when I can't do it. Like literally when I was dealing with my parents and all that sort of stuff. So thank you, Stacy, for yet another beautiful, brilliant, insightful article that will help many. All right. Wendy said, let's see, hold on a sec. What did I miss here? Wendy says, Jill, I don't know if you remember me or not. I certainly remember your name, hon, but I'm the one that had the fibroid sitting on my bladder in the left side, and no doctors would listen to me. I was told that I had IC with a clear bladder. Finally, I had a hysterectomy from a doctor that listened to me and have not had any pain since. Yay! I was convinced by a doctor that I had IC. I hope it's not IC since I have been good since you had your hysterectomy. This is fantastic, Wendy. Congratulations, hon. See, there you go. I mean, think about this for a moment. Her bladder was healthy. There was nothing physically wrong that they could see with her bladder wall during a cystoscopy. But what she did have is she had a substantial fibroid resting on top of her bladder. And we have research that shows that that will cause the symptoms of IC, frequency, urgency, pressure, and or pain. And more importantly, we have research that shows that when you remove the fibroid, the urinary symptoms usually resolve. And so, Wendy, girl, you are basically cured now. This is fantastic. Congratulations, hon. I had a similar patient, kind of a similar story a couple weeks ago. I had a patient, again, diagnosed with interstitial cystitis. But when they did the cystoscopy, what they found is that she had a large diverticulum. She had basically a balloon connected to her bladder through a tube. And this diverticulum was filled with urine that was not draining. And so they found it because she kept getting bladder infections. And she has a real structural problem with her bladder. It was not a disease process. And I asked her, normally diverticulums happen with straining. You can get a diverticulum off of your urethra. You can get a diverticulum off of your bladder. It can even happen off of your rectum, if I remember correctly. When you strain and stress, when you strain and strain and strain, that pressure is going to affect the tissue. And she had been straining very badly. The doctor was reluctant to remove it. And I'm like, why? I mean, it was big, like the size of a lemon. I was like, girl, get that sucker fixed. That you're not going to be able to manage that with a medication. That is a real, genuine physical abnormality that they can surgically correct. Wendy says here, don't stop searching. I agree with that. I completely agree with that. Man, we got to be active. You can't be passive. That's why I don't like the word patient, because it implies you have to be patient and wait for the doctors to tell you the answer. You need to be a respite. That's called a responsible participant in your medical care. What that means is you go, you read, you learn, you make appointments with your doctors, and you ask questions. Lots and lots of questions. We had a patient who diagnosed with IC for a substantial period of time, but her pain was always in her urethra. And she told me, she said, I've been to like 8 urologists. And they all say, it's my bladder, it's my bladder, it's my bladder. And they all gave her IC meds and didn't do a damn thing for her. And then finally, she went to a new doctor. Actually, she saw a nurse practitioner at a new gynecologist. And she's like, it's my urethra, it's my urethra. And the nurse practitioner said, you know what? Let's do some imaging. And you know what? She had a giant diverticulum off of her urethra. So here's your urethra. Well, she had a pocket the size of her urethra connected by a little tube filled with urine. And they surgically removed it. And guess what? She's a complete cure. Now, we had another patient diagnosed with IC, and her symptoms were so severe, she was bedbound. Bedbound. She'd been bedbound for a decade, most of her 20s. Like, couldn't sit, only could lay down. And she attended one of these meetings that we're doing right now, that I'm doing right now. And I went through the phenotypes. And when we got to pelvic floor dysfunction, and then we got to pudendal neuralgia patients have pain when they sit. Pain is dependent on body position. So they're fine when they stand, but when they sit, it hurts. When they bend over, it hurts. And she'd never heard of that diagnosis before. So she did her due diligence, started reading about it, and she went, wow, that sounds like me. So she made an appointment with her urologist and presented her data and said, listen, number one, I don't respond to bladder treatments at all. And number two, I have pain when I sit down that gets better when I stand up. I think I have pudendal neuralgia. And you know what? Her urologist agreed and said, yes, I think you do too. Urologist didn't bring it up. She brought it up. So then she had some imaging done. And what the imaging found was that her tailbone was grossly out of position. Instead of hanging straight down, and being curved like that, it was like this. It was poking straight out at like a 45-degree angle. So her tailbone was like this, and it was kinked outwards. So there's her butt. Her tailbone was sticking out like this. So whenever she sat down, she sat right on her tailbone. And of course she had pain. So let's look at this for a moment. So here's your tailbone. You can see that the tailbone hangs down and under. Hers was poking out like this and at an angle. And all the muscles that were attached to her tailbone were being stretched and traumatized because her tailbone had been broken. I was like, well, now, that's clearly not a bladder disease at all. And she ended up working with a physical therapist and a chiropractor for a year. And it took them a year to get her tailbone back into its proper position. And you know what happened? Her symptoms basically went away. She was no longer bedbound. She could go back to work. And the blessing is she was able to get pregnant. For 10 years, she lived in a bed believing she had a bladder disease. She didn't have a bladder disease at all. She had a catastrophic break in her tailbone. Tailbone injuries are very common in pelvic floor and pudendal neuralgia patients. They are. So, as Wendy said, don't stop searching. All right, my friends. Well, listen, I think I've hit my limit of what I can do today. My voice is starting to fade, and I'm getting a little tired. So I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas. I wish you a Merry Christmas. Happy New Year. Good tidings to you and all of your kin. Good tidings at Christmas and a Happy New Year. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year. And I'm going to see you hopefully next Sunday after Christmas, where we get to celebrate New Year's. I don't know about you, but I am ready for 2025 to be done. What a year. And to anybody out there who is struggling, I send you my love. You're not alone. I truly, truly wish you the best. I will be here on a limited schedule. You are welcome to call the IC Network. You are welcome to send me an email. And if I can, I will respond back to you. All right? All right, my friends. Merry Christmas. And may you have a kind, sweet, gentle, wonderful day. Okay, I'm going to end Facebook first. Bye, Facebook. All right, my friends on YouTube, I am sorry if you had questions. I could not see them. The chat function was completely broken. So if you had a question about IC that you wanted answered, you are welcome to email me directly, icnetwork@mac.com, or you are welcome to give me a phone call. All right? Peace, everybody. Happy holidays.